For reaction to this week's plethora of political headlines, let's bring in Joe Zepecki, a Democratic strategist. Joe, thanks for being here.
You bet. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
So let's start with the new lawsuit challenging Wisconsin's legislative maps. It was filed with the Supreme Court just one day after the court flipped to liberal control. Does this immediate suit signal that the court is going to be pushing a liberal agenda?
Well, let's remember that it wasn't the court that brought the case. These are citizens of Wisconsin who I think have a case to make that the current maps undermine fair representation, that has in turn eroded voter confidence and meant we have fewer competitive elections, which is skewing policy outcomes. And so the litigants who brought this case, they're not on the court, they don't work for the court, they believe there's an unconstitutional map in place. We will find out how quickly this court takes up that case and rules on it. But it doesn't surprise me that citizens who for a long time have been concerned about the map are rushing to the courthouse steps to file this. Because let's be honest, some of those folks are political actors, and it is pretty unlikely that we can get new maps by the time there are elections next year. It's possible that we get fairer maps by then, but that would be a bit of a long shot. So I'm just cautioning people to be skeptical and not count any chickens before they hatch there.
And Republicans have said that, for a case like this, with comments she had made during the election season, that Janet Protasiewicz should recuse herself from a case like this. Do you think that that's something that she should do?
I don't think that's going to happen. That was litigated during the campaign. Both candidates, Mr. Kelly and now Justice Protasiewicz, addressed that. She gets to have opinions, and she made clear to the people of Wisconsin that she would make her decisions based on the rule of law. The people of Wisconsin seem to find that a satisfactory answer, which is how she romped to a 10-point win. I have no doubt that she is going to look at every single case based on the merits and based on the laws and act accordingly.
Let's move to the news now that Republican Congressman Tom Tiffany will not be running for Wisconsin's U.S. Senate seat, challenging Tammy Baldwin. At this point, Republicans don't have a top-tier challenger for Democrat Baldwin. Congressman Mike Gallagher has said he won't run. We have a couple businessmen, the former Milwaukee County Sheriff David Clark, considering runs. With all this in mind, what do you think it says about the GOP's chances of flipping the seat?
Well, listen, Senator Baldwin is working really hard for the people of Wisconsin every day. I think people understand that because of that, she's going to be a very tough opponent. Just recently, she passed legislation to make sure that 100% of the manufacturing around our naval vessels is made right here in America. That's going to create jobs. That's going to help Wisconsin manufacturers. And that's a good thing. And I think it's part of the reason that now 4 or 5 potential candidates have passed on taking on Senator Baldwin. She's going to be very tough to beat. Now, the other part of that is Democrats, people who want to see Senator Baldwin return to the Senate, can't take anything for granted, whether it's the 5th or 6th multimillionaire who gets into the race, whether it's Sheriff David Clark, whoever it is, we have to run like we're 10 points behind. I know Senator Baldwin has always done that, and she will continue to.
Well, Democrats are facing a battle. The Senate map favors Republicans. Democrats across the country must defend 23 seats next year, Republicans just 10. But without a strong candidate to challenge Baldwin at this point, do you think Republicans would turn their attention to other battleground states?
Well, I don't think there's any question that Mitch McConnell is paying more attention to Ohio and West Virginia and Montana, states where it is easier for Republicans to flip the seats. And Mitch McConnell's no dummy. Whatever you say about him, this guy is politically smart. If he thought there was a real opportunity to get a strong candidate against Senator Baldwin, he would have done it by now. Instead, they're down to the 4th, 5th, or 6th name on the list. It does not bode well for Republicans. And it's pretty surprising, frankly. We know Republicans are coming for the state of Wisconsin with all they have. It's why their national convention will be here next summer. We know that it'll be a battleground state in the presidential race. The fact that they can't get a Senate candidate to step forward really underscores some of the challenges within the Republican Party right now.
Turning now to the Trump indictment news, Wisconsin taking center stage in this, particularly those Republicans who took part in Wisconsin's fake elector scheme. Democratic Attorney General Josh Kaul previously indicated he wanted to see how federal investigators are moving forward on the matter. We now know their path. Why do you think Kaul might be waiting on taking any action locally?
Well, I trust Attorney General Kaul to make these determinations. This is, he was a former federal prosecutor. He knows his way around a criminal conspiracy, is the first thing I should say. I also want to point out to folks that part of the conspiracy alleged in the special counsel's indictment that was handed down this week is that former President Trump and his unindicted co-conspirators apparently misled many of the fake electors, the so-called fake electors. There were concerns in one state that would they be committing fraud if the state's count wasn't overturned? They built in some language, and the attorneys around former President Trump, so we better not tell the other states about this or they're going to want that too. So it sounds to me like the brain trust of the conspiracy to overturn the election were not being straight with the alternate electors in all of the battleground states. That may be a distinction without a difference politically, and to those who are so offended, rightly in my view, by this effort. But in the court of law, that could make a very big difference. I'm sure that's the kind of thing that Attorney General Kaul is looking at.
Joe Zepecki, thank you so much for the time this morning. Appreciate it.
You bet.